Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. Tonight our guest is Chuck Coleman, or some people call him SteamPunk Chuck, as he likes to be called, and his Queens of Steam are with us too. Here is what Chuck has to say. There is a powerful purpose in the artistic expression of SteamPunk Chuck to awaken the genius that lies within the heart of every woman. Through the exterior transformation with fantasy hair, makeup, and the original designs of Chuck emerges a wounded warrior goddess. Now, I want to introduce to our show Chuck Coleman, or as some people say, SteamPunk Chuck. Welcome to the Susan Brender Show.
Wow, thank you so much. Who is that guy that you just explained or expressed there? Thank you very much for the introduction.
Well, it's my pleasure. And, you know, it seems, Chuck, that as I said a moment ago, there's a whole group of people, your warrior goddesses, with you. Now, for many of these women, this is the first time in their lives that they have felt the almost mystical power they possess. Explain to our audience what that means, Chuck.
This is something that happened by pure mistake. I am a photographer, and when you, as a photographer, look for advice from others in the industry, your peers, they all kind of give you the same memo of what to do, the images to take, and for some reason it was very boring to me. And I received great advice from a fellow photographer who was actually successful, and you really don't find that many successful photographers within the industry. And I asked him, please, could you give me some advice that I've never heard of before? And he said, sure. If you find your niche, you will find success. You need to do something that others are not doing, because if you have, you know, everyone running down the street chasing that bucket of money, the only people that are going to be successful are the first 5 or so that catch that individual with the bucket. You have to learn to create your bucket, something that makes people come to you. About 3 years ago in Chilton, Wisconsin, a very famous hair and makeup artist asked me to attend a SteamPunk event. I went to that event, and something was very different. Everyone was positive. Everyone loved what they were doing. I seen these women transform into these characters of power. It was very intriguing, and from that day forward, I call myself SteamPunk Chuck.
So now that's how that came about. Well, you know, you leave these people feeling empowered, fearless, and ready to face their lives with a newfound confidence. What a unique gift you have, SteamPunk Chuck. You know, not only to these women, but to society at large, there must be a more expansive view of the beauty and the power of a woman. Would you say that?
I would. Beauty has 2 different versions. It has a male version, and it has a female version. Women are more, they pay attention to detail. They look for more emotion. Men are a little bit more primitive. And throughout life, what I have done is I've tried to figure out what that difference was. And I had no idea I was going to find that difference in photography. So whenever I speak to a woman, and each woman has an inner child in her, one that wants to feel beautiful, one that wants to sit on the top of that convertible and wave to the crowd, and, you know, people, you know, look at them and say, oh, my God, I wish I was in her place. She never, ever, she goes to her grave with that feeling or that movie playing in her head. And once I started my SteamPunk photography, these women who thought that that would never happen, all of a sudden found an opportunity to do so and not be ashamed of doing, you know, that particular style of photography with me. And when I place those shoulder pads on them, when I do their hair and makeup, some have really never had the opportunity to learn how to do makeup for themselves, and I can see the transformation as I apply that makeup, as I apply, our warrior-like gear on them, but then and yet apply that elegant dress to them, and the hair, the makeup. They transform right in front of me because they really never had the courage before to do something like that, because society has said that that's something that is for dreamers and kids, but they dream. So that society that creates those rules, basically they've grown up through life thinking that that's something that is not possible. And then all of a sudden I bring that to them, and all kinds of emotions are released at that point.
So Chuck, tell me, how did you get started?
In photography in general, or
with all the things you're doing?
It started for me back in 1985 when I went to Germany. I went to a place where everything was different. So I picked up a camera trying to capture that forever elusive memory. So everything was new, the cars, the buildings, the food, the street names, the castles, the landscape. Everything was, and that was a time when the wall came down in 1989. Everything was just so new and different there. I went to school there, learned the language, and I picked up a camera trying to capture that memory. That's where my photography life began.
And so what motivates you to keep going, Chuck? Because, really, you are doing an awful lot. So there must be something that motivates you.
I believe the motivating factor for me is that as a male, growing up in a society which we all kind of follow the same memo, I have been searching for something all of my life, and that is acceptance. People really looking at me and saying, you know what, I really like what you're doing. That is awesome. So all throughout life, I've been looking for that acceptance, whether it's a relationship. I just want someone to look at me and respect what I do and believe in me. So these women are believing in me, and I believe I am the one who's actually receiving the best gift of all throughout this whole process.
Now, could you tell our audience what SteamPunk is exactly?
SteamPunk is basically a 18th century that meets New Age technology. It's based upon a theory. If in the 18th century we would have stayed with coal versus our fossil fuels, we would have still made clothing exactly the same way as the Queens in the Elizabethan time, but we would advance in technology. And the goggles that you see in most steampunk images represent if we would have went to coal. You would have had people underground shoveling coal, so the goggles represent them protecting their eyes from the cold. So basically it's the 18th century meets New Age technology, and a lot of people don't know is that there is a what-if science fiction division at the Library of Congress that speaks just of that, and I was invited in May of last year to the Library of Congress to talk to a fantasy book writing club about my photography and what it means to me.
And that group that you gave the speech to, how did they react to what you had to say?
My images are, it makes people stop and think, because my editing style on my images, I pose the women. I try to allow them to enter into this session that I give them. I try to allow them to leave that session without any expressions, but still the image reeks of power because of the leather, elegance because of the dress, artful form of makeup that is still beautiful, and the way that I edit, it almost looks like a painting, but not. So basically what I'm trying to create with that image is a huge question mark of exactly, what is this? Why is this? I want people to stop. I want them to think. And every woman wants to be approached in that type of manner. They want to be asked questions. They don't want to have preconceived notions of who they may be. They want people to stop, look at them, and get to know them and ask questions and not have any preconceived ideas of who they think this individual is. And that's what my art is all about.
So you're doing a shoot this weekend, aren't you, and a pilot for SteamPunk Chuck?
I am. It's actually a pilot for a reality show because I'm the girls call me the gayest straight guy ever because I talk so much. but this pilot is basically I want people to see how important it is for them to listen to our female population. A lot of these women that I speak to on the phone, they open up to me and they tell me things that they have not told their parents or spouses. And I'm not a psychiatrist, so I don't know what that is. So, and this is so new what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do with this pilot is to get attention to someone who can help me dissect and understand exactly what's going on. So what this particular pilot is about, we're bringing about 19 people in from around the United States that have flown here to take part in this pilot. And we're going to be shooting with the film crew the whole process of what we're doing. And we're going to be asking them questions of why they like this, why they jumped on a plane and flew to Houston, Texas to be a part of this. And we're going to show them our whole process. We're going to document that and film it because me explaining this on a social media network or in a magazine really does not do the justice of having them explain this in basically a live format.
Chuck, if people wanted to see your work, where would they go?
SteamPunk Chucks, that is plural. That's SteamPunkChucks.com. So
I always like to give my guest the last word. So what do you have to say to our audience?
When a young lady or a woman looks at my images, the first thing that comes to their mind is, wow, that woman is beautiful, she's a model, but they never take that step to say, I can do that. Fear is something that gets in the way of a lot of things in our lives. Just get outside of your comfort zone, whether it's taking images or whatever it is in life. Get outside your comfort zone and do something that makes you happy.
Well, that's very wonderful words of wisdom, Chuck Coleman. You are a very interesting guy. And so I'm going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we're going to be speaking to Chuck's editor-in-chief, Christy Arantes, his PR editor-in-chief. So let's take a break right now.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show.
My guest today is Christy Arantes, who's the PR and editor-in-chief of Chuck Coleman's business. And I want to know, Christy, how did you get involved and what is your role in this business?
Well, it's really interesting how I got involved. I was scrolling through Facebook and saw a high school acquaintance in one of his beautiful images, and it was like art. It was beautiful, and I was like, wow. So, long story short, I liked it, made a comment, and a few minutes later, Chuck himself sent me a message through Facebook and told me kind of the story of what's behind those photographs. And we got to talking, and, it just so happened that he was looking for a writer, and I was looking for something that I could do that I was passionate about. And so that's how we came together. And so it was quite an interesting story because Brandy and I were, went to high school together, and 25 years we were kind of reunited through Chuck. So it was really cool.
You mentioned Brandy. We're going to interview Brandy shortly, but tell us about your relationship with Brandy. When did that start?
Well, Brandy and I went to high school together in North Carolina, and over the years, in high school we were more acquaintances. What bound us was the fact that both of us were teen moms, and so, we went through that experience, and it's quite traumatic. I was 15 when I had my first baby, and she was 17, and so we had sort of this unspoken sisterhood where we both knew what each was going through. And I really didn't hear from her other than just seeing her through social media. She called me one night about a year before we actually re-encountered through Chuck, and we just talked for an hour. Found out that she had unfortunately lost a son in war, and we just reconnected. And then about a year later, when I saw her picture, she was already on board with Chuck. And so we've been able to, just bond and become friends, and just, it's been an incredible experience.
Well, let's go back to the company. So what is the mission of the company?
The mission of the company is simply to build a global community of women empowering women. We believe that women are objectified in society, and we would really love to spread the message that women have so much more value than what's on the outside. We're intelligent, we're nurturers, we are providers, we are, we really run the world, and we really love the support that we get when we come into these retreats and transform ourselves through this powerful imagery. And sometimes for the first time we see ourselves in a different way. And I know that's been the experience for me, having gone through some of the things that I did, and then coming into this experience has even strengthened my confidence and strengthened my resolve and my passion to go forward with my dreams and goals in life. And so we want to build literally a global community of women that are connected like this, starting here in the U.S. and then eventually around the world.
Sounds like a very noble thing to do. So what does the future hold for SteamPunk Chuck?
Well, we have quite a lot in store for us. The first edition of our magazine, SteamPunk Chuck magazine, is coming out next week, as a matter of fact. And that's really exciting because that was a project that I really poured my heart and soul into. And it is basically a book of art and stories of women and their struggles and their challenges and their triumphs. So that's one thing that we are doing that's really great. We are also shooting a pilot for a possible reality series because we feel that our message is one that is needed in the world, and we feel that it has value. And so we are taking that step forward and filming this weekend in Houston, Texas. We are also going to be in Panama City Beach next weekend, Labor Day weekend, for a promotional event at Harley-Davidson, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
And we are traveling across the country, connecting with women, doing these photo shoots. Eventually, our goal is to be able to offer this service free of charge to women of domestic violence issues or any type of abuse or financial struggles, women who really need something like this. And so that is our eventual goal, to get to that audience.
So how do women get in touch with you to set up a session?
Okay, there's a couple of ways. The best way to do that would be to go to info at thecciagency.com, and that is our main office. And then also, if you want to check out some of the blogs that we have, which are very interesting, you can go to steampunkchuck.blogspot.com, and you can get a lot of information there. And you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're all over the place. So yeah. So and also we have a Queens of Steam website, and we're working on that. It's in pre-production, so that'll be up soon as well.
You know, Christy, you're an inspiration to a lot of people, and I want to tell the audience. I want you to tell the audience if you had to do it over again, would you still be doing this job as editor-in-chief of SteamPunk, Chuck?
Absolutely, and I can tell you that it was very ironic when he came into my life, because I had been a stay-at-home mom my entire life, and I pretty much thought my life was over at 15 years old. I defined myself by that pregnancy for 20 years, and I got into a really bad financial place, my husband and I, in the recession, and a business crossed my path in network marketing, and I decided that I was going to take a stab at it. I delved into personal development for the first time in my life, and over the past couple of years, I changed. So when this opportunity came into my life, I was struggling with, I feel like I'm giving up, what I've worked so hard to build, and I feel like I'm, quitting, and I really was struggling with that. And this came across my path, and it really involved everything that I was passionate about: writing, empowering women, and travel and fashion and glamour. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a leap of faith. I'm not quitting. I'm letting go of something that has served me well. I honor that journey, and I'm willing to move forward and do something different. And so I would encourage every woman out there to just follow that intuition and that guide that you have, that voice that you have. Everybody has it. Do what you love.
15 years old, you had your first child. I'm just curious about that. What happened? I mean, why at 15 did you become a mother?
Well, I lived in a really small town, and the interesting thing about me, Susan, was that I was not that girl. I was in gifted classes. I was, a classical pianist, or I am a classical pianist. I, was cheerleader and all of these things. And, I got into a relationship, my first love, and it was actually a very mentally and emotionally abusive relationship. And since it was my first time, being in a relationship, I thought that jealousy and all these types of things that were going on meant that he loved me, my naivety. And, I was also in a very religious environment that it was really not my truth.
Right.
And I was going through that and with my parents in a very negative upbringing, and then I had this guy in my life, and I was like, wow, it was kind of crazy. And it was kind of like a pressured situation, and I was a pleaser, and I wanted to do, to make him happy. But honestly, like I had just pregnant, like the first time.
Wow.
Which is insanity. And like that's even hard for me to believe to this day.
Yeah.
And it was so traumatic, and I really allowed that to define me. I mean, I spiraled in my 20s, into depression and anti-anxieties and antidepressants, and had, 3 more babies, because babies made me feel loved and wanted and needed. And, and I at 30 years old, I was like, I'm not in love, I'm not happy. And I went out and I started partying and living, and, I eventually met my husband now, and, got on that spiritual path of self-discovery. And thank God for that. I studied New Thought, and it's been just like an amazing experience for me. I have transformed myself. Like if you had met me 10 years ago even, you would not think I was the same person. So I'm all over social media. I'm all over the place, and people look at my life, and they look at me now, and they think, oh, she's had this perfect life, And I want women to know my story. I want women to understand that the reason that I'm happy and that I'm joyful is not because of circumstances, but because of what I choose to think about my circumstances. And so we are goddesses, period. And, we need to wake up to that.
Ah, great words. And you do sound passionate about what you're doing. And I just want to say good luck to you, Christy, for all the wonderful things that you're doing for women and for others. And so our guest today, our second guest, has been Christy, who's the editor-in-chief of SteamPunk Chuck. I want to thank you for being on the Susan Brender Show.
Thank you so much, Susan. It was my pleasure.
Thank you, Christy. I really appreciate it. My next guest is Tricia Crow, who's the project manager for SteamPunk Chuck. And I want to know, how did you get involved with Chuck, and how long have you been on the board?
I have been with Chuck for about a year, maybe just a little over a year. I met Chuck just after I had gotten out of the hospital. I was very sick and really low self-esteem, and a best friend of mine was another photographer with Chuck, and he kept asking me to come shoot with him, and I kept saying, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a model. And I decided at the last minute, you know what, I'm going to go check this out. When I got to the shoot and watched all the women and everything they were going through, and the hair, the makeup, and heard some of their stories, I just absolutely fell in love with Chuck and his story. And I just couldn't imagine not being a part of his team.
Well, tell our audience, Tricia, who is Tricia? So, Tricia, I would like our audience to know a little bit more about you. So give them some knowledge and some advice, too. But first, tell them more about Tricia.
Okay. I am a single mother with 4 children. They range, I'll have to tell you their ages. They are 6, 7, 19, and 21. So I did have 2 marriages there and 2 divorces. I work a full-time job with a major oil and gas company here in the Houston area.
Tricia, you have a wonderful job now, and you're doing something that must make you feel passionate about. So tell our audience again, what is it about what you're doing that makes you have this great passion?
My passion with the modeling and being with SteamPunk Chuck is that I feel very empowered when I am with him. And in my pictures, I feel like I can tell a story based on my expressions in the pictures. And I love the images that Chuck can create and what he pulls out of me, the raw emotion that he can pull out of me during a photo shoot.
And so what's your persona when you're working with SteamPunk Chuck? Do you have a special costume? Do you wear things that make you sort of different than everybody else?
I don't really wear anything different. I wait to see what we have that's available, and I go from there. And a lot of it also, I take, into consideration the attitude that I have for the day. There have been some shoots where I'm much more subtle, or there are times when I'm very dramatic. And it just depends on how I feel that day.
And so you're a photography assistant and makeup and styling person. Where did you learn to do photography and makeup styling?
Actually, I've been taking pictures since I was a very small child. And I always loved photographing people and things, and I just never really never really felt that I had a knack for it until here recently. But I love taking pictures. Absolutely love it. And I love putting outfits together and seeing the, in the picture, seeing the effect that it gives, how the colors kind of go together or they don't go together, just how they mesh.
Mm-hmm. So is there any photographer that you taking some advice from, SteamPunk Chuck, your mentor?
I would consider him definitely my mentor. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. And photography, when you look through that lens, what does it make you feel like? Because sometimes you can see the most beautiful things that you don't even think about, but suddenly when you have a camera, the whole world opens to you. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. The whole world does open to you, and it's really an awesome feeling when you have that camera in your hand and you can capture just that exact moment that you need, that you know is the high point, the selling point. That is the picture.
So you've grown from this experience, have you not?
I have, absolutely.
Ah, that's great. Well, anyway, so Tricia, it's been great to speak with you, and I hope you have a wonderful time doing what you're doing and helping to empower women. Thank you again, Tricia.
Thank you so much.
My next guest is Brandy Honeycutt, who's a photography assistant, makeup and styling person. And, I want to know, we spoke with Tricia Crow, who told us how she got involved with Chuck. And what about you? How did you get involved?
Probably the same way many, many, many other people have. I saw an image, and it just blew my mind, and I just thought, I want to have my pictures taken by this photographer. And then after my first session with him, it just really sparked this interest in me to do makeup and styling again, because that's what I wanted to do in my 20s. But I didn't, I was a single mom with 2 kids, and, it's not really something you can just run off and do. And now in my 40s, through Chuck, I actually have this opportunity to kind of nurture that aspect of myself, the creative aspect that's been neglected.
So this is an interesting thing. The creative part of you that has been missing, how did that kind of come about? Did you not have an upbringing where they introduced you to creative things? Were your mother and father not involved in that?
Oh, no, it's nothing about that. I was a single mom, and, you just work and you take care of business and you do day-to-day life. It's not that I didn't have creative opportunities. It's just through working with Chuck, and I get to be in an environment, and now I have the availability, to be in an environment to do this really often. So it's a lot of fun.
And have you grown from this experience?
I have grown. I've met a lot of really great people, and I find that, I find that there's great people all over, and I've been able to travel with him and see places that I haven't really been to, as far as, I've been to Boston a couple of times, and now I'm in Houston, and so I'm meeting really great people everywhere we go. Mm-hmm. So you can't not grow through that kind of experience.
I understand. And so just let's talk about the experience itself, because I haven't really asked anybody about that. Start out by telling our audience a little bit about what you do when you're part of this whole group.
Me or just
you?
Okay, so the thing for me is that I love that moment when you get to show someone a different side of themselves, or they get to look in the mirror and they see themselves looking in a way that they never imagined. I find that, we all have feminine and masculine aspects of ourselves, and then with SteamPunk and, the hard materials and then the soft materials, the leather, the spikes, and then you have the satin and the lace. And so as far as, from a woman's perspective, it really we get to bring out maybe the less dominant side, and I absolutely love that, because then the women look at themselves and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I could look like that.
Explain how when you're made up and you're wearing a certain costume of sorts, Explain to our audience what it kind of looks like, because you just said something about it, but just give us a little taste of what if a person were doing what you're doing, how they would dress and how they would look.
So it's Victorian with harder materials. So you have your satin and your lace and your ruffles, and then you would have goggles and hats and wristbands and with clock pieces and just things that you wouldn't obviously you're not going to wear day to day, but it's fun, it's fantasy. And you get an opportunity to go through this wardrobe and the makeup to go to somewhere that, you don't normally get to go.
Ah, that's very interesting. Well, Brandy, I've been having a little fun with you, and I want to thank you for being on the Susan Brender Show. And when we come back, we're going to get Garrett Klein on our show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. My next guest is Garrett Klein, who's a photographer and the partner in this franchise that we've been talking about, which is all about SteamPunk Chuck. And so, Garrett, I just wanted to know how you got involved and what motivated you to get involved with Chuck.
Well, I had started out and took a glamour shoot in the Smoky Mountains, and I did that and was excited about that. But then I ran into a forum on Facebook, and it was SteamPunk Chuck's images that got me really excited about this.
Now, were you always a photographer?
Yes.
And what kind of work did you do?
Mostly event-type shoots and sporting events.
Mm-hmm. And so what makes you excited about doing photography? There must be something interesting in that craft or skill. I said to one of the people whom I spoke to before, like Brandy and Trish, I said, when you look through that lens, it must transform you because there are things you see that you never saw before. Do you agree with me?
Yes, I do. And why I really do this is the expressions on their faces when they do get to see their images.
So describe some of the experiences that you've had with SteamPunk Chuck, and tell us how much fun it is. I mean, it can't be anything but fun, can it?
No, it's really fun, and it's a gathering of people really, and it's and everybody seems to get along great. Okay.
Now, you're a partner in this franchise, so I want our audience to know a little bit more about what it means to be a partner in a franchise.
I guess just to be under, I am kind of partner and apprentice too, but under Chuck and getting these type of images out so we can get that emotion captured in these images.
Mm-hmm. How have you benefited as a photographer?
Oh, quite a bit. Again, I was doing events and everything else, and I would never have thought I would get these type of images coming out of my camera.
Mm-hmm. And describe some of the images that you actually get.
The lighting and the wardrobe, just captivating.
Mm-hmm. Lighting is a very important part of photography, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And describe how you learned to light up a stage and to light up the person whom you are photographing.
And actually, learning from Chuck, but we're mostly using like 2 or 3 lights, and it is about positioning the lights. I guess mostly positioning and just getting the angles correct.
Mm-hmm. Have you studied photography in any kind of setting that gave you all this experience? And if you did, What sets, in your opinion, what sets a good photographer apart from one who is just sort of an amateur?
I would say definitely it comes back to the lighting again.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the most important is the eyes and the face and stuff.
Yeah. So are you having fun with this project?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. Well, Garrett Klein is a photographer and the partner in the franchise, and he's having a great time. So we want to thank him for being on the Susan Brender Show.
Thank you.
My next guests are Gail Beck and Peggy Linney. Both of them are the newest queens that are part of SteamPunk Chuck, and they have started a business. They are part of this whole experience. So I want to know, Gail, first, how has this experience challenged you?
Well, I'm a small-town girl, and first, I've never done any kind of photo shoots, been in front of the camera at all. So it has challenged me to step out of my comfort zone and put myself out there. For myself, I don't even like to do selfies on Facebook, and all these photos are going out on Facebook with my friends and family, and just putting myself out there has been different and has challenged me to say, okay, this is part of the process, and I'm got to accept it if I'm going to continue doing this.
So how did you find out about this? Because not everybody knows about SteamPunk Chuck.
Actually, in our area of Franklin, Pennsylvania, that Garrett Klein had put an ad on. It was called Oil City Shout Out on Facebook, and he started posting past people that had done the photo shoots, and I just so happened to click on that day and saw it, and I was just intrigued by the whole thing. I'm very artsy, and I just loved the look, and it was so me. I've always had doing a photo shoot on my bucket list, but nothing had even piqued my interest until I saw all these images, and I thought, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do this. And I contacted them, and it's so far since the end of July, it's been a ride.
I bet. And Peggy Linney, you also got involved as one of the newest queens, and how has this experience challenged you?
Well, I have to say I am 50 years old, and I used to do some modeling in my early 20s. I was probably like 23. So to not do anything from then till now, it's definitely a challenge to see what can I look like still kind of thing. And it definitely makes me a little nervous. Chuck is great, though. He makes you very comfortable. But back to the question you asked Gail, how did you get into it?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Trish, that you interviewed earlier, was my neighbor of probably 20 years, and I started seeing her images on Facebook and started inquiring to her, and I actually said, hey, if you ever need an old lady, let me know. And I clearly was joking, and then Chuck contacted me, so it kind of went from there.
Yeah. So both of you, we'll start with Gail. What advice would you give to anyone considering becoming a queen with SteamPunk Chuck?
Well, with what Peggy had said, I'm 56 years old, and things start changing on your body that you have no control of, and you do the best you can to try to keep in shape, but things still move and shift. And I'm being older, I was a little bit taken back because of that. But I've always wanted to do a photo shoot, and I just thought, just do it. If, someone's apprehensive of doing it, just do it once. And you're going to have a different experience because Chuck makes you feel like a woman, and it's not about the outside image. It brings out the inside image, too, of once you see the photos, it's just overwhelming. It moved me to tears They had to do a makeup.
Wow.
Remakeup on it because it just moved me. I just looked at it and thinking, I'm so much prettier, you know. And it's just he just guides you through the whole experience. You know, everyone thinks you have to be a size 0 and you know, tall and you know, and it's not. I'm only 5'3" and you know, medium size, but it's just I want that experience, you know, because there's a saying, it's called "Live Your Dash," and I just want to live my dash between you know my birth date to my death. Mm-hmm. There's a poem out that's by Linda Ellis, and it's called "The Dash," and it just makes you want to live. And you know, we're only here on Earth, and I want to make the best of it and do things that are on my bucket list.
Well, there you go. Very wise words. Now, both of you, I'd like to ask you, have you had any aha moments at all?
I'd have to say, this is Peggy, my aha moment is kind of like Gail said. First time I saw any photos, I was like, oh my gosh, is that really me? Mm-hmm. I never knew I could look like that. They're awesome. And she's right. It didn't matter your size, your shape, your height, nothing mattered. So the advice is if you're doubting it, don't doubt, just do it because you're going to look amazing.
Mm-hmm. So Gail, what have you learned about yourself through this experience?
Well, I'm an independent person, but doing this has made me more confident. I'm like to get on a plane by myself and say I'm going to go to a destination or, you know, doing a film shoot or, you know, it was nerve-wracking and I, you know, get a little keyed up, but I'm trying to push through that to make me that stronger person that says I can do this and I can look back on it and sort of pat myself on the shoulder and say, and you did it. Proud of you.
That's good. That's very, very good. And for you, Peggy, what do you hope to take away from this weekend? Because it sounds like you're having a great time.
Well, actually, I'm not getting to participate this weekend because I have my child. I decided to come over and visit and meet some of the people I haven't had an opportunity to meet yet. So I'm just going to be able to drop in on Saturday and see how it's going. I don't believe I'm going to be able to. Mm-hmm. But I'm sad about it, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, next time I'm sure will have the experience that you need to have. And so I want to thank you both, Gail Beck and Peggy Linney, for being on the Susan Brender Show. And my next guest will come up in just a second, and that's Charmaine, the new makeup artist for SteamPunk Chuck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Take care now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
My next guests are Katie Madden, who's the first-time client in the SteamPunk Chuck business, and Charmaine is another person who's the new makeup artist. So I want to start with you, Katie, and I want to ask you, have you had any aha moments during your experience?
Well, I have to say I only met Chuck about 5 weeks ago online, and it was just purely by a coincidence of two mutual friends that we hit up on the network there, and it was because of that I saw his imaging. So I'd say the aha moment was when I saw the first image by him, and it really made me stop in my tracks. And it's a different type of art, and his talent is truly over the top. And it's like, to me, it looks like wall art. So that's what made me stop and look at it. And then I contacted him to chat more about his work.
Mm-hmm. So what is it about SteamPunk Chuck that motivated you to fly to Houston to spend the weekend with a group of strangers?
Well, I found it kind of invigorating, the thought of this kind of a big conglomeration of several people coming together for this event. So I looked at it as an opportunity and a chance to meet him and get my first time in front of his lens.
Mm-hmm. And Charmaine, you're the new makeup artist, as I said. So, why did you want to get involved with the crew?
Well, I was on a Facebook page and I saw the image of this photo, and I was going through a lot of different artists' photos, and I saw it, and I thought at first that it was a painting that was very vintage, and I just stopped because I felt the passion through it, and the inner beauty was captured of the model that was in the photo, and I was just like, wow, that's really amazing.
Mhm. Yeah, go ahead.
I liked the image and I left it at that. I didn't do anything more, and because I saw that, he was based way too far from me, and I was like, okay, whatever. I liked it, but that was it, and I just kept thinking about it, and I got this email in my inbox, and it was a generic mass media message, and it was like, this is how you join, that kind of thing, and I didn't think anything of it. I was like, it's a mass media for everyone in the group. And so I was going through my Facebook, and I noticed I got a poke from Chuck, and like poke wars. Yeah. And he, I messaged him. I was like, I thought, it was a mass media message, but were you trying to message me or something? Were you asking me to join? And he was like, no, it was a mass media message. But then we started talking about, like, the photography and the passion of it, and he sent me videos of the experience that are on YouTube, and I was, I just started talking about what I liked about it, and then he said, call me in 10 minutes. And so I called him a little bit longer because I didn't check it, and he was like, can you call me now? And I was like, oops. And we just talked about photography, and then he was like, so, where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm in Georgia. He's like, no, like, where are you? I'm like, oh, I'm in Atlanta. He's like, I'm going to be in there, like, 5 to 6 hours. Do you want to come meet the producers? And I was like, what? And I just took the leap, and I did it, and I was totally amazed. And I was just like, let's do this.
So what do you hope to take away from this weekend?
Like, the experience. I just want to feel the wholesome belonging of being in something that I'm very passionate about, and to continue to take that with me and experience more experiences that just take my breath away.
That was great last words. Well, thank you, women, for being on my show. It's been a great pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we're back with Chuck, who is the owner of SteamPunk Chuck. And I want to ask you to say the final word here, because we've had so many interesting discussions with the people who are involved in your business, and all of them said it gives them so much passion. But what do you have to say? Give me the final word now.
I have been going through this for the last 3 years, dealing with trying to find out where this is going to lead me. And I understand that everyone finds empowerment from this, but I have to say I'm probably the one who receives the most out of this. I love all the ones who participate. They give me real conversation. When I say real conversations, it's very empowering for me, for an individual to come up to me and say things that they never would say, to anyone else in life. I get a lot of satisfaction out of this, and I could not do this with this wonderful team.
Well, those are great last words. Well, thank you, Chuck, and good luck. It sounds like you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show.